For 13 years, the Pandavas endured an unfair exile. Upon their return, their cousin Duryodhana yielded nothing, refusing them even a needle's width of land. Diplomacy has failed. When political greed reaches this point of total refusal, the only remaining mechanism to restore righteousness is a massive generational war. This text records that exact historical breaking point. This is the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, titled Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which translates to the Yoga of Arjuna's Grief. These gathering armies represent more than a territorial dispute. They are the physical manifestation of a struggle between long-standing attachments and the difficult inner discernment required to act correctly. In the Hastinapur palace, King Dhritarashtra sits in heavy silence. Blind and anxious, he waits with his advisor, Sanjaya, for news from the front lines. The king's first question, recorded here in verse 1, is telling. He asks, "What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do when they gathered on the sacred soil of Kurukshetra, eager for battle?" Sanjaya answers with Divya Drishti, a divine vision granted to him so he can see the distant battlefield. He describes the reality of the war live to the king who cannot see it for himself. The entire discourse follows this framing. It is the story of a father whose blindness and greed made the impending slaughter of his family inevitable. At Kurukshetra, millions of soldiers, elephants, and chariots stand in two massive oceans. They face each other in an eerie, absolute silence. Following verse 2, Sanjaya reports that King Duryodhana is closely inspecting the Vyuha, the specific military formation the Pandava army has taken to counter him. Duryodhana approaches his teacher, Dronacharya. He begins naming the legendary warriors on the opposing side, speaking with an arrogance that barely hides his internal political anxiety. Although Duryodhana commands the significantly larger force, he is the first to move and speak, seeking immediate reassurance from his elders. The silence ends with the shanknad, the blowing of massive conch shells. In ancient warfare, this was the primary method to announce total combat. Verse 16 lists the specific instruments. King Yudhishthira sounds the Anantavijaya, followed by his brothers with the Sugosa and Mani-Puspaka. Verse 17 accelerates the roll call. The king of Kashi, Shikandi, and Drishtadyumna blow their horns, joining a unified roar. The combined sound vibrates through the earth and the air. It shatters the morale of the opposing army, signaling that the time for words has passed. This deafening noise ends all diplomacy. The political dispute becomes a terrifying physical reality. Through the noise, one magnificent chariot moves forward. Pulled by 4 white horses, it carries the ultimate warrior, Arjuna. As verse 20's English translation describes, with missiles ready to be hurled, Arjuna raises his legendary bow. He gives a sharp command to his charioteer, Shri Krishna, directing him to drive the chariot into the dead center of the two armies. Arjuna chooses to see the men he is about to kill. Before the first arrow flies, he insists on looking his enemies in the eye and taking a full moral account of the coming slaughter. The chariot leaves the Pandava ranks and rolls alone into the dust of no man's land. It comes to a sudden, heavy stop. A surreal silence falls over this specific patch of dirt. Millions of soldiers wait as the single chariot sits motionless between them. Arjuna looks across the line, seeing the faces of grandfathers, uncles, and his childhood teachers. This recognition triggers a sudden, paralyzing collapse of his heart. Arjuna begins to shake, overcome by grief and doubt. Beside him, Shri Krishna remains perfectly still and silent, watching the warrior's resolve disappear. The physical war is now suspended. In this gap between two oceans of death, the dialogue of the Bhagavad Gita begins.